Danielle, why don't you give us an update on what's going on with the economy today?
Well, let's bring up the chart. Let's start off today by bringing up the chart. Because believe it or not, what's going on with the economy has a lot to do with how much money the government is giving people. And people don't have a good appreciation for that. We're actually starting to see shipping rates turn. And this is a global phenomena. We're starting to see inventories build. This is a global phenomena. So the supply chain disruption that we've been talking about for the last 18 months, it's starting to dissipate. And companies have gone from just in time to just in case. So you don't want to build up stockpiles, by the way. That's not good business practices. And yet so many companies are. On the fiscal front, though, if you look at what beef inflation was, damn near 25% year over year. Forget the 6.8%. Forget that. But poultry was up 14% year over year. I mean, we're talking about monumental moves in the most essential prices. We know housing prices are through the roof. However, there's a reason that we're seeing inflation to the extent that we are. And it has everything to do with fiscal policy run amok. So this is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And it used to be called food stamps.
Yep.
On the day that Biden had to walk back and say, I meant what I said, August 16th, about Afghanistan, he had a New York headlines hit right then and there, New York Times headline hit that said, SNAP benefits to increase 32% and the biggest increase in the history of the program. So he signed an executive order in January and he said, let's revisit the food pyramid and see how much money we really need to give families. And by the way, right before the pandemic, we were kind of in the $190 range-ish, $125 range. This is per person.
Can you explain to the average person what this is?
This is the average benefit that an American receiving what we used to call food stamps gets deposited to a debit card on a monthly basis.
Okay, so this is food stamps being given away to the average person.
Right. And,
okay.
And in August, when the international community was enraged because of how badly Afghanistan had gone.
Yep.
The executive order, all of a sudden, the report was ready to be rolled out that same day that said, we're going to give people 32% more. 32% more.
So they buried it, essentially.
As of October the 1st.
Yeah.
Data are not available, but this is an extrapolation, if you will, because we only have data through September. But if you extrapolate what the average U.S. household was getting, give or take $400, you bump it up, $570 per household. That's if you got like 2 kids. Per household. Add that to the average of $550 that 61 of the 73 million children in America are getting the child tax credit. 90% of U.S. households with children are getting cash from the government. Yesterday was the last payment. And you add these two up.
90%?
90%. In 2019, there were 73...
That's hard to believe.
In 2019, there were 73 million children in America. We know that since then, the birth rate has declined.
Yep.
So that 73 number is probably high, and immigration has crashed. So, but as of December the 15th, the last cash payment that we know is going to occur without Build Back Bigger, as of December the 15th, the average U.S. household was getting $550 in cash.
Okay.
90%. 61 million of the 73 million children in America. Families who do not need the money, period, end. In addition to that, the CARES Act greatly expanded the percentage of Americans who are eligible for assistance with buying food. So on October the 1st, we don't have the data yet, the benefits went up by 32%. Again, you hear these anecdotes. If you're Joe Q household in America and you're getting $1,100 in cash at a minimum a month, and your spouse can stay home, which means you don't have to pay for childcare. Are you ever going back into the workforce? So I'm
probably not for core jobs under $50,000 a year.
Exactly, because it doesn't make economic sense.
And that's the line we're
They've
talking
done the
about.
math. So they're giving people so much money that the fraud is rampant.
Yeah.
If you're Joe Q with 5 kids and you're getting $1,500 a month times 2, if you're Joe Q, what do you do with all this money on a debit card to buy food?
Right.
When you don't want to buy that much food, you sell it to your You sell it to your liquid uncle for 50 cents on the dollar. You got $8,000 sitting on this debit card. You're like, what the hell am I going to do with $8,000? I don't want food. I want other things.
But is this stopping?
No, this is not stopping. That's why we brought up the chart. There's some emergency measures in there that are going to decrease ever so
So what you're
slightly
saying
the
is
benefits.
to divert from the Afghanistan story.
I'm just saying that it was a coincidence that it happened to roll out on the
Okay.
same exact day
Right.
that he had to say, I stand by my decision.
It's one of those
August the 16th.
Got it. So it's one of those coincidences like dropping a news story at 4 o'clock on Friday and the other tricks that our government does to
Right.
kind of divert the distraction. So we could debate the distraction. But on that day, they raised it and it was not temporary, it's permanent. And so you have people that are getting a tax credit simply because you check the box. That's how you fill out your taxes, and the tax software does it automatically. And then that's the half you're talking about.
Yep.
And the other half is these debit cards that are out there for the other half of them. Because 90% of American households don't have one of these debit cards from the government.
No. This is not 90% the child tax credit.
So you're talking 90% of you are getting
And
a
that is-
tax credit that
Yeah, yep.
your tax guy's Quicken software automatically puts on because it's part of the regulation. And then the other half is getting these cards, and these cards are now up to this to the point that there's a secondary redistribution model where
Massive.
people are monetizing it and selling it to
and I'm not
liquid
saying
uncle.
that this is the norm, but I'm just saying, I was in Austin for Down the Middle Austin series last week, and to hear the anecdotes of somebody with $10,000 built up on a debit card. You sell it to your uncle who's liquid. Your uncle gives you 50 cents on the dollar. So you've got cash to buy whatever you want. All the bad goodies in the world, all the good goodies in the world. What does your uncle do?
Are those debit cards only
They're
set up-
anonymous. They're anonymous.
Okay.
They're interchangeable. So what does your uncle?
There's not a name on there.
No, you just use it almost like a gift card. When you go to check out at Kroger.
You can buy a cold sandwich, but not a hot sandwich. And you can't buy booze, and you can't buy cigarettes, you can't buy anything that's bad for you.
Right,
you
but
can
if
only
you
buy
bought
food.
standard food, Pat, right there at the little checkout at Kroger, you would just use it, and they have no clue that you're using
So-
basically a card that's a program
Gentlemen,
card.
I have a quick question before we jump in. If you're the uncle who just paid 50 cents on the dollar for this
Yeah.
card, what's for dinner? Is it ground beef? Or is it Wagyu?
Whatever they're hungry for.
Exactly, because they've just paid 50 cents on the dollar for cash.
Yeah.
Why is beef inflation up 22% year over year? Why is a pound of bacon $9.99?
But here's what happens with this. This is when you get destroyed in midterms. You know,
Destroyed. Destroyed.
So the point is there's cause and effect. The great thing about the system is there's cause and effect. You can do all of this free stuff thinking it's going to work, and then you realize the math doesn't make any sense, and then you get destroyed, and then everybody says it was your fault, and then they gradually distance themselves from you because God forbid if a person is seen that's a Biden camp and you're a congressman trying to run again, you're like, if you're part of his camp, you're not going to get reelected. You notice a lot of people are not getting around him today. They're trying to stay away from him. And CNN yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw CNN yesterday, made a story. They talked about the fact that who are some potential candidates to replace Biden.
Right.
They're already talking about
No, they
who are
were
some
making a
potential.
huge deal out of that yesterday.
Oh, they
CNN.
were not. They were.
That was like
weren't-
their talking thing of the day.
and did you hear what one person came out and said yesterday? That said, if it's going to be a consequential event if this person gets reelected, you know who that legendary person was that said this? The sweetest human being in the world, the most beloved person in America, who is
Drum
more
roll.
ambitious to want to be a president than anybody else we have currently in America that didn't get there. But Newsweek did a special magazine on this individual saying, Madam President, do you know who that person is? Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you
She
imagine
did
if
that.
Hillary runs again in 2023,
Oh my God.
2024?
She'll be, what, 90?
So anyway, so the point is, you can do all this stuff all you want, but you're not going to do well.
Right.
And you're going to get crushed in midterms. So keep doing it.
Yeah, and
All right.
Danielle, the key word that you threw out there was fraud, because this thing is just ripe for fraud.
You gamed the system.
last fall. So when I
No,
was
it's
coming,
not just ripe. The fruit's being picked, but you're correct.
so when I was going back and forth from Dallas to LA last year, the final 4 months of the year, I was going back and forth every single week. Every single week, the planes were full. Right? And this is when travel was shut down, and I could not figure it out. I mean, why are the planes full coming back from Dallas to LA? You can't go anywhere. The city's shut down. There's nothing to do. Finally, this really smart guy informed me what was going on, and he was an Uber driver. The massive level of fraud that was going on with the handouts last year on the debit cards.
Oh, yeah.
People would fly in that have never been on a plane before, by the way. A lot of these people have never flown anywhere. They come to LA, Uber drivers pick them up and drive them from ATM to ATM. They withdraw $300 at a time on these fraudulent cards, and then they rent big houses in the Hollywood Hills and throw these huge parties.
Oh my God.
They rent luxury cars for $2,000 to $3,000 a day, And that's what was going on for 4 months. Billions and billions and billions of dollars in fraud with that handout program last year.
All right.
By the way, a few people got arrested and they went to jail for it. I mean, there's major
yeah.
stories there.
I'm going to pose a question to Tom because he got one step in front of me because you were going right where I was going. Because Patrick started up by saying, "Where's the U.S. economy going?"
It's trouble when you compliment Tom.
No.
Because it's
No,
over.
no.
He's
Especially
gonna
at the
talk
beginning of
entire
the
time.
show.
We're done.
He
ahead.
he knows what's happening.
No, this is my sister from another mother. We're thinking the same way
He
on
knows
these
what
economics.
happens on. Okay, so if you're Joe Q, I've been collecting the child tax credit in cash. Do you still anticipate that you're going to get your big tax refund on January the 31st when you go to H&R Block or wherever you go to electronically file your taxes? Are you still planning on getting that tax refund?
Like in general or that day?
No, just in general.
The middle class and the slightly upper middle class that's using H&R Block, they still think it's coming.
So they still think the income tax refund is coming.
Absolutely.
But the child tax credit has been paid out in cash, post facto, past tense. So we're talking about
Whoopsie.
And Biden wants to start paying back student loans on February the 1st, right at the same time that people are not getting their income tax refunds that they were thinking that they were going to get to pay off their credit card debt from Christmas. Oh, it's just going to be.
Whoopsie too.
Fire up the printing presses, more money.
No, it's just
No,
the
no.
Republicans don't even have to. They don't have to hire an advertising agency for the primary season.
Patrick is correct.
They can just sit back and say 61. What's
Well, and then you
61
couple all
swing
that with
seat?
the crime, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a toxic mess.
Pat,
for
you're
them.
absolutely right. Well, Pat made a point a minute ago. He says, hey, you can keep doing this for free. Do this. What they have done on fiscal policy during this reaction to COVID, and they have pushed the free pendulum all the way over here. It's a combination of free and printing money, and they've pushed it over here. All of a sudden, that pendulum is going to be too heavy, and it swings back the other way. It has to. It has to. And they can spin it all they want, and Psaki can say whatever she wants from the podium, and the average person is telling you, my milk is now $6 a gallon. The average person is telling you, my gas is expensive. And those are the people that are going to the polls. So you can spin it any way you want, but the charts are speaking truth, and Pat's, you're absolutely right. It's coming.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.